Welcome to the Obsessed or Not Interested podcast. I am your host, Mindy Wonder-Quario, and I'm a small town go-to girl next door who is obsessed with helping others see more for themselves so they can thrive in all areas of life. I love researching all the things like wellness, mindset, relationships, you name it. If I'm obsessed with it, I get hyper-focused on it and I research the crap out of it, and then I share it with you. If those are things that you're also obsessed with, then keep listening and let's become new best friends. So now I'm going to talk about the because there's 7 different types of ADHD. I'm going to talk about this. This is directly from the Amen Clinic site, which is the place where I got my brain scan. That's where my doctor is. And I went to the Chicago clinic. For Lily, we went all the way to Orange County and we went to the Amen Clinic there. All clinics I think are great. I loved all our doctors. I loved Lily's doctors, Hudson's doctor, and my doctor. We all 3 had different ones. So let me just talk about, and we'll just summarize the 7 types of ADD along with treatment protocols. Okay. But before I do that, I just want to say I understand not everyone can afford to go to the Amen Clinic and get a SPEC scan. I understand not all of us can afford to go see a doctor. And the reason why I recommend the Amen Clinic, again, over going to just like any doctor to see if you have ADD is because they have that comprehensive approach where they're not only asking you questions and having you do testing, but they're also looking at the actual brain. And that is what sets them apart from everybody else. They're doing a SPEC scan on your brain. Now, I'm going to share images of my brain on my SPEC scan. I'm going to share audio from when I got diagnosed, more audio throughout this episode. And I want you guys to hear it's just like a full-on approach and everybody's different. So do your own research. There's a great book by Dr. Amen. I think it's called Healing ADD and ADHD. I think that's what it's called, but I'll put it in the show notes for sure. But okay, let's get into the 7 different types of ADD. So there's the classic. The symptoms for that is inattentive, just easily distracted, hyperactive, disorganized, and impulsive. Basically all the symptoms I just said. Normal brain activity at rest, decreased brain activity during when you're trying to concentrate on tasks. That's in the SPEC scan, which again, I will play parts of my actual appointment, the recording of my appointment with my doctor, where he explains my brain and what he's seen on the SPEC scan and all that kind of stuff. Cause dopamine deficiency, decrease blood flow in the prefrontal cortex, which helps produce the dopamine. Okay. Treatment for this is stimulant. Okay. So by the way, there is medication. So for this classic type, such as Ritalin, Adderall, or things of that nature, those things are good for this type of ADD. So there's 7 types that we're going to go over today, but only 2 of the types benefit from things like Adderall or Ritalin. Okay. So you don't want to just, if you have a child or you yourself and a doctor's trying to give you those things, that would have a negative effect on my type of ADHD. So it's really important to identify which type you have and not just take a medication just because a random doctor says, oh, this is what I give everybody, because that's not true. Only 2 types benefit from the medication that I just said, and that's classic ADD and then also inattentive ADD. Those are the 2 types. So that's number 2 we'll talk about. Well, before we do that, the treatment. So Ritalin or Adderall for treatment. And then there's also some supplementation that you could do like green tea, amino acid, which is a building block of dopamine, extra physical activity, fish oils that are higher in EPA than in DHA. So these are things that you need to figure out which type of ADD you are, then go and do research on how to heal it, which that book is going to help you so much. So type number 2, inattentive ADD. You have a short attention span, easily distracted, disorganized, procrastination, not hyperactive or impulsive, impacts girls as much or more than boys, the inattentive ADD. So cause dopamine deficiency, low activity in the prefrontal cortex. And again, the treatment, Adderall would be something that would help this type of ADD. And then supplements like amino acids, like I said, low. And then the diet that would help this type is higher protein, low carbs, and then regular exercise. Type number 3 for ADD is overfocused ADD. Core symptoms of classic ADD plus trouble shifting attention, going from one thought to thought or task to a task, getting stuck in negative thought patterns or behaviors. Cause is dopamine or serotonin deficiencies, overactivity in certain parts of the brain, which makes flexibility difficult. So I can't remember exactly which type of ADHD that Hudson was diagnosed with because this was like 2 years ago or a year ago now. I'd have to look that up, but I believe he was overfocused ADD, which makes sense why he needs things just so. Also, he has OCD. So treatments for this would not be anything like a stimulant like Adderall or Ritalin. This is supplementation like 5-HTP, saffron, which I take that every single day, by the way. It's Bioorganify, and they come in gummies. So if you have a child that you want to give this to, that is like, they call it like the happy supplement. So if you wanted to try that. And so it says for this type of ADD, you want to avoid a high protein diet, which may trigger mean behavior. And then neurofeedback might help. Okay. Number 4, temporal lobe ADD. Core symptoms of classic ADD, as well as learning, memory, and behavioral problems such as quick anger, aggression, and mild paranoia. So, causes could be abnormalities to the temporal lobe, decreased activity in the prefrontal cortex. Some treatments that you could do is amino acids like GABA. That's a good one to calm the activity in the brain and helps, like, if your brain seems like it's overfiring, this could help like calm all of that down. Magnesium to help with anxiety and irritability. There's other medications that you could take for mood stability, ginkgo for the memory problems and brain development and things like that. And then number 5 is limbic ADD. I think that's how you say that. Core symptoms of classic ADD, as well as chronic level sadness, not depression, but like low level sadness, moodiness, low energy, frequent feeling of helplessness or excessive guilt, and chronic low self-esteem. Okay. The cause of this is too much activity in the limbic part of the brain, the mood control center, which makes complete sense why that would be different than somebody with like classic ADD. Okay. Decreased prefrontal cortex activity, whether concentrating on a task or at rest. And then the treatments for this supplementation would be DLPA and then SAMe supplement, antidepressants, exercise, fish oil, and diet modifications. If you guys want to get any of this information, you can go to the Amen Clinic website. I can put that in the show notes as well. And all of this stuff is on there. Okay. And then number 6, Ring of Fire ADD plus. Symptoms are sensitivity to noise, light, touch, periods of mean, nasty behavior, unpredictable behavior, speaking really fast, anxiety, and fearfulness. The cause, a ring of hyperactivity around the brain. The entire brain is overactive with too much activity across the cerebral cortex and other areas. Treatments include stimulants alone may make symptoms worse. I want to repeat that. The stimulants alone may make the symptoms worse. So this is why when I'm telling you, when you go somewhere and they're just like, okay, Adderall, 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 anybody that has that's on the spectrum, you want to pull back and think to yourself, wait, which type of ADD does my child have? Which type of ADD do I have? Because I don't want to go on like this Ring of Fire ADD. If you had that, that stimulant is only going to make your symptoms way worse. So begin with elimination diet. The Amen Clinic recommends. If an allergy is suspected, neurotransmitters like GABA or serotonin are boosted through supplements such as GABA, 5-HTP, These are the things that literally I started Lily at 15 months old. Lily started to get on all these things. So this is what Dr. Cartzenell, which is one of the best autism specialists doctors or autism specialists that you can find. It was Jenny McCarthy's son saw Dr. Cartzenell and they wrote a book together called Healing and Preventing Autism. He's a great guy. Love Dr. Jerry. He put Lily on all these things when she was first diagnosed and we first saw him. Actually, I think she was like 2 years old when we started her on this stuff. And medication, if necessary. For medications, begin with blood pressure drugs. Oh my God. Wait till you hear the recording of my appointment because they said something similar to this. So anyway, blood pressure drugs and which calm overall hyperactivity. So I won't name the drugs because I'm not a doctor. I'm not prescribing drugs today. Number 7, anxious ADD. Core symptoms of classic ADD, as well as being anxious and tense, having physical stress symptoms like headaches, stomach aches, predicting the worst, freezing and anxiety, provoking situations, especially when being judged. Okay. This is called anxious ADD. The cause is high activity in this certain type of or certain area of the brain, the opposite of most types of ADD where there is low activity. So this anxious ADD is the opposite of most of the other 6 because you have high activity in an area of the brain where in all the other 6 areas you had low activity in that area of the brain. So the treatment for this is promote relaxation, increase dopamine and GABA levels. ADD stimulants taken alone make the patient more anxious. Begin with a range of calming supplements, magnesium, holy basil. They give a few recommendations here. And then neurofeedback to decrease the symptom of anxiety, especially to calm the prefrontal cortex. So those are the 7 types of ADD. So you have to, again, why I wanted to go through that and read that to you guys is because I had no idea about this until I went to the Amen clinic. And so I was trying to treat certain things myself. And I was just like, this isn't working. Maybe I don't have this. Maybe I do have early onset of Alzheimer's. Maybe this is just who I am. And what I found is just that my brain is just different.
Resting and concentration side by side. This is your brain on the left, resting, on the right, concentrating. Now, at rest, it looks pretty good overall. I get super nitpicky with the scans, so don't mind me.
Okay.
The technician's report will also be sent to you on email. The technician's report may say this looks like a head injury pattern. I know you fell off the bike, wheelie, 21 years of age. I read about that. That doesn't mean that caused this. Other things can also result in a head injury pattern that's seen on the scans. Temporal lobes are affected. The frontal lobes are affected. When you concentrate, the frontal lobes give out on you, but the opposite is supposed to happen. It's supposed to rise to the occasion. This is really interesting because this pattern with the frontal lobes dropping instead of rising when you concentrate is seen in ADHD. So there's multiple reasons why I think you have ADHD and you meet all the criteria like the textbook. Okay, so you have ADHD, but also when you concentrate, the temporal lobes fall off. The temporal lobes help us with controlling that emotional pendulum, emotional stability, and new learnings, working memory, short-term memory. So when you're tasked with something even as simple as the spacebar with the X test, your temporal lobes don't regulate your emotional pendulum very well. So your emotional pendulum starts swinging to more extreme levels than it should. So you might perceive even a minor stressor as an emotional tsunami in certain situations. And what does the frontal lobe do? Think about cognitive stuff, think about mood. Attention, concentration, executive functioning, task organization, planning, prioritizing, processing speeds, but also motivation, drive, interest, pleasure, joy. it's driven by dopamine. Now, other things can also hurt these areas. Poor sleep is a massive one. As I said, I'm a sleep expert. When we look at my NFL guys, sports psychiatry and boxers, we see their head injury scans. You will not know the difference between a traumatic brain injury or a sleep deprivation, insomnia, or sleep apnea study. They look identical. They look like a brain.
That's insane to me. Wow.
Yeah. And I just gave a talk yesterday at a virtual symposium on the impact of sleep. You need to aim for 7.5 hours of consistent sleep all nights of the week.
Okay.
And there's supplements to help with that. There's certain strategies to help with that. And of course, there's always medication, but I almost never prescribe sleep medications like Ambien or Lunesta, Belsomra. Almost never. In fact, I'm usually taking people off those when they come to me for just sleep consults. There's other better options. Progesterone, low testosterone, anything that affects the function of the frontal lobes, okay? I also put on certain supplements to help boost these areas to function better right off the bat. SSRIs like Prozac, Paxil, Lexapro, horrible choices for you. If anyone suggests that you should be on them, say no.
Okay.
Good options would be, there's a medicine, if we're thinking about a medicine, there's a medicine called guanfacine, or there's another one in the same family called clonidine. I'll explain what they do.
Okay.
They're not stimulant medication. So they're not going to just boost your dopamine here, because if I just give you stimulant like Adderall or Vyvanse or Concerta or Ritalin, it's going to make your emotional pendulum swing wider, so you'll have more anxiety. Bad idea. But these ones, one of these, helps calm the nervous system down, help you with calm focus. They drive the sympathetic nervous system down. And in fact, clonidine, was originally designed as a blood pressure medicine because it works on the nervous system to calm it down a little bit. It was also found to be very effective for PTSD symptoms, that situational overwhelm.
Now we know what ADD is. We have some examples. We know the symptoms. We know the 7 different types. We know some treatment things that we can now take this information, do more of a deep dive and some research on our own to figure out how to help ourselves or our child. But now we are going to do a deep dive into how I cope and some tips for you guys as well on how to cope with ADD and ADHD to literally turn it into your freaking superpower. Seriously, thank you so much for listening to this episode of Obsessed or Not Interested podcast. I love connecting with you on social media. So if you guys want, please shoot me a DM at either our podcast Instagram, which is at Obsessed or Not Interested, or even my personal Instagram, which is at Mindy Wender. I check them both, so either is fine. Oh, and truly, if this has helped you even 1%, if you could do me a huge solid and leave me a rating and review, that would mean the world to me. When you guys do that, here's why I really love it. It's because it helps the podcast be able to reach more women who want and need this. So truly, that is like the best compliment you could ever give me, is just leaving ratings and reviews for this podcast. Anything that I talked about in today's episode, any links or resources, you will find that in the show notes. Thank you for listening to today. Can't wait to chat more in the DMs, and don't forget to tune in next Tuesday.